And Hillary Clinton allegedly utilized the services of a political fixer for over a decade. It's a story you'll only hear tonight on Hannity. Also tonight, you'll hear from Indiana Governor Mike Pence, Trump campaign manager Kellyanne Conway. But first, the National Enquirer, after a 16-month investigation, describes how the man they call Mr. Fix-It helped the Clintons cover up their various scandals. Now, according to the Enquirer, this man's story is particularly compelling because the magazine alleges that back in 1994, it agreed to drop a story about Bill Clinton in exchange for special access to Roger Clinton's wedding featuring his then pregnant girlfriend, a deal offered to them by Mr. Fix-It himself. Now, the National Enquirer issued the following statement regarding their report, writing, quote, "In vetting this story during almost 2 years of investigation, we were confident in the credibility of Jeff Rovin after reviewing his handwritten diaries during the relevant time period, fax memos to the White House bearing date and time stamps, payoff ledgers, and the independent verification of 4 other sources who confirmed Mr. Rovin's involvement in the Clinton operation." Now, we did reach out to Hillary Clinton, her campaign, and former President Bill Clinton's office multiple times, and neither, shockingly, provided us with a statement. It is important to note that Fox News cannot independently verify the story, but tonight, for the first time ever, this man's identity is being revealed. Joining us now in a Hannity exclusive is novelist and reported former Clinton fixer Jeff Rovin. Mr. Rovin, how are you, sir?
Sean,
very nice to meet you. How did you meet the Clintons?
I've been interviewing celebrities since I was 19, and the editor of the Enquirer at the time, David Perell, good friend of mine, said, "Hey, I've got a really bad story about somebody you just profiled in Ladies' Home Journal." I said, "If I can get you an interview, would you bury it?" Negotiations followed, but that began a decades-long career as what Dylan Howard, the current editor, has.
Yeah. Now, I did talk to Dylan about your piece, and I'll get to that in a second. You know, a lot of people, they hear National Enquirer. Well, let me just put up a few stories that the National Enquirer broke that were correct. For example, the National Enquirer broke first and correctly O.J. in the Bruno Magli shoes, if you remember back at the time. The National Enquirer first broke John Edwards, the whole love child scandal. First the girlfriend, then the picture of the baby, if you recall. The story they broke also was Jesse Jackson's love child. The story the National Enquirer broke first and correctly, world exclusive, woman at the center of Tiger Woods' cheating scandal is exposed. And then the story they broke first and correctly, Gary Hart asked me to marry him at the time, and they were the first to have photos of Hart and Donna Rice on Monkey Business. And there were they've gone after conservatives. They went after Rush and some other stories. So people attack it because it's a tabloid, but they have a pretty good track record.
David Perell, who ran the teams investigating most of those stories, is a journalist. You may not like the material, but ironically, it is so heavily vetted because it is so controversial. It's probably better vetted than most of the stories in other media.
Well, I went through with your editor everything that you had. You do have ledgers. You did have the faxes with the letterhead and the timestamps. The Clintons know you. They're watching now. They know who you are. They know you fix things for them. Tell us about how you got in the business with them and what you did.
I was fixing something. I really don't like the term, but there it is. I was fixing something for an actor who was in their inner circle, and that was how I was engaged. It was that simple. I also, as a ghostwriter for Tom Clancy, had met generals and undersecretaries. I knew where the back doors were in Washington. So there were different ways to deal with things.
You knew when Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton went on 60 Minutes and they denied Jennifer Flowers, which eventually he admitted to in the Starr report, that he was lying.
Yeah, I thought this was going to be pretty easy when I first agreed to do it because you had Paula Jones, Jennifer Flowers. The stuff was out there. I figured, okay, we're done. We weren't. I would say that David Perell's files, and I know that Dylan and his team have their own files, but David's files were massive. I mean, we're talking Canterbury Tales massive. The reason that I agreed to participate in this process now was not an easy decision because I don't like publicity.
Why did you?
Yeah, because Dylan showed me the article. There were names in there that I didn't feel should be in there. Friends of mine, confidential sources that he didn't realize were confidential. And I said to him, okay, to my job during the story itself, I wanted to write an editorial condemning the salacious nature of political reporting now. Look, the New York Times has become the Inquirer has become the New York Times. The world is upside down. We've got to set it right again.
All right, so your job was to help hide their scandals. And the degree to which you're saying they had an open marriage, you're talking about hookers, you're talking about dirty tricks, buying off journalists, and much more. What specifics?
I mean, that one's word. I'm on your show.
Is there anything that's not true? What I said?
No. One of the reasons I wanted to come on your show is to put things in a little less hyperbolic way, perhaps.
A little less sensational?
Yeah, without the screaming.
You don't think paying off people and having an open marriage and...
To me, it's not my business, and it's nobody else's.
So you're
business.
libertarian in terms of people's sexuality. That doesn't matter to you?
My personal feelings were irrelevant in this. It was really a matter of, look, when you turn a corner, Gilbert Stewart, George Money, when you walk in the Rose Garden with your wife, you get seduced. You want to protect the people who are helping you have that access.
And that happened to you?
To a degree, sure, and I was only on the periphery. You can imagine what
How many times were you in the Clinton White House?
Twice. I was there twice.
What about one of the big issues that I think matters? Hillary claims she's a champion of women's rights. You have, I assume this came from you, to Harold Dickey's, a lot of redactions in it, though, about how to smear Monica Lewinsky.
Actually, that particular document came the other way around. It says to Mr. He's from... Yeah, the from was one of the reporters that we hired to dig into Monica's story, and that document...
And they were out to smear her in a major way as being nuts and, you know...
Of this in person to Monica.
You did?
Yeah, I did.
Where?
She became my neighbor in New York in one of those cosmic, karmic ironies.
Wow. And you told her what you did and who paid you. And well, you say you never got paid. Did you? You never got paid?
I never got paid for this, no.
Why would you be a fixer and not get paid?
Because I was working with people who were involved.
But you got money to pay off other people.
Correct.
And who gave you that money?
Right. Not going to get into that. Those are some of the names that I wanted out of the original article.
So there were certain people that would give you money. Was there ever threats if you either knock it off or we'll break your legs?
No. It was, first of all,
not necessarily from you. I watch a lot of movies.
Yeah. Well, I mean...
Or was it all bribery?
It was all bribery, but it was more
payoffs.
Yeah, because you have to.
And was there a sort of a threat, a subtle threat given? You're going to shut up now. Anything like? Well, that's a fair question.
No, it's absolutely a fair question. But the trickle down or trickle up nature of this was, the tabloid sources that I would pay would then go to their sources, who were invisible people like limo drivers, hotel clerks, wait staff, security guards, who would see and hear things and would tip them off. So it went from that group to the reporters to me, and then I had to make the decision about how to deal with it. And most of the time it was just money. There never had to be any threats.
What was your contact? You're saying the Clintons directly knew what you were doing?
I spoke to Hillary on 2 separate occasions about certain things. Now,
can you say what they are?
I'd rather not at this point. This
is a big part of the question.
Yeah,
though. This would be important.
I spoke to her at the Roger Clinton wedding,
where the National Enquirer had exclusive access.
Yeah.
Maureen Dowd said it's not true.
Yeah, well, we had exclusive, complete access.
Got it.
I know. I saw Maureen had filed a story in the New York Times.
Right.
You have to remember that every time I saw Hillary, I was bringing bad news. The messenger got shot.
Did she have the infamous temper we read about? Not with you?
I wouldn't say there was a temper. There was a steeliness. There was
a resolve to fix it.
Yeah, uranium.
Would she tell you specifically, you fix this?
She said she wanted it fixed.
I tell you what, we got to take a break. We'll come back and we'll have more. This is a pretty incredible story about cover-ups and, well, about a life of the Clintons that they obviously don't want the American people to know. We'll continue with Jeff Rovin. He is known as the Fixer. This is the National Enquirer piece. And also coming up tonight, Project Veritas released a brand new video of Democratic operatives appearing to admit that Hillary Clinton ordered a dirty politics plan to try and damage Donald Trump. Trump's campaign manager, Kellyanne Conway, is here tonight. And then later, Donald Trump's running mate, Indiana Governor Mike Pence, is here. That and more straight ahead, right here on Hannity.
Live from America's News headquarters, I'm Kelly Wright. Good evening. Here's what's happening. Early in-person voting is now underway in the battleground state of Florida. Polls have shown a tight race in the state between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. A Florida victory is critical to Trump's hopes for capturing the 270 electoral votes needed to win the presidency. Early voting by mail has been underway for weeks, with nearly 1.2 million Floridians mailing in their ballots. A terror attack killing dozens of police trainees in Pakistan. The gunmen stormed a police training center in Quetta and set off explosive vests. At least 41 people inside the facility died, and more than 100 were injured. Most of them were trainees and died from the explosions. A military spokesman says the attackers belong to an al-Qaeda-affiliated group. And that's a look at news this hour. I'm Kelly Wright. Now, back to Hannity.
Welcome back to Hannity as we continue with novelist and reported former Clinton fixer Jeff Rovin is with us. All right, smearing happened. Money was paid. Orders were given. You were to go out and damage the reputation of people like Monica Lewinsky.
Well, I didn't personally go out and damage it, but
part of an effort.
It was a team effort, yeah.
Got it. This was an open marriage with the Clintons.
So it's been said.
Well, wait a minute. That's hedging way too much here.
No,
that's what the piece says.
Look, if screaming is to be taken as validation, there were harsh words behind closed doors that we all heard.
And their effort was to destroy Monica Lewinsky, destroy her.
That was the original concept, and I have to say that as this proceeded, because the president kept insisting there was nothing there, and ultimately, and again, this may sound strange, to his credit, he's the one who put the kibosh on using any of this material.
They also claim that, in fact, Hillary did, in fact, have a romantic relationship with Vince Foster.
That was pretty much of an open secret in our circles. The order to intervene with the press for at least a half hour after he committed suicide.
Will you let the media look at these ledgers, the 24 years worth, I guess, that you handed over to Dylan, the years worth of notes and calendars, or this 10-year period? Will you let the public, would you let journalists see that?
I'd have to think about that. Certainly.
The things that Dylan saw that put this piece together.
Yeah, it required me to be there to interpret a lot of my shorthand, but
sure.
The fact that my dates lined up with his dates and his information was what was important.
It is interesting because one of the worries of the Clinton campaign, and we saw this in WikiLeaks and John Podesta, and in particular his relationship with this woman that the Secret Service has labeled the Energizer, and the subject line read Julie, which is a real name, and saw her picture in the Enquirer. Podesta wrote to Cheryl Mills, obtained by WikiLeaks, probably need to revisit the Whitehaven conversation. That seems to corroborate.
Well, but that's just my point. The Enquirer has its own independent resources, and again, I have to stress, I came forward primarily to protect the people that I worked with.
What is this tape that the Enquirer had that you came in and got and you traded off special access to Roger's wedding. What is that?
I was alerted to the fact that there was an audio tape from an answering machine in which the president's name was invoked. A liaison with a young woman was recommended or suggested, I forget which. And as soon as we found out about that, we wanted it to be killed. It had been offered to the Inquirer. I called David Perell, and he said, well, if you've got something more newsworthy, we'll consider it. I went back to my people with that, and we decided the wedding was probably more newsworthy.
How many reporters were paid off to kill stories for the Clintons?
Again,
that you know of.
They were paid to soften the stories.
Or kill it.
They eventually got out in diluted form. But we had, I think, 5 primary tabloid reporters from the Inquirer, the Star, and the Globe who were watching out for everything that went on editorially. And
could anyone pay to get a story killed?
Pay?
Could you pay to get a story? They're writing a story about you. Could you go to them and say, I'll give you X dollars to kill the story?
We'll find out tomorrow, but I don't think so.
You don't think? But how, are these prominent? Is this the New York Times, ABC, CBS?
No.
These are tabloid reporters.
What would happen is if we got wind of a story from the tabloids, chances were pretty good it would end up in one of the mainstream newspapers or magazines. We would then contact one of those people and say, this isn't true, don't run it, here's...
Right, final 2 questions.
Yeah.
What do you want people to take out of this? What do you, in other words, you say you're libertarian, you don't care about people's private life. Okay, this is pretty salacious stuff.
Yeah.
What do you want people to take out of that?
It's a stinking business. It's an absolutely rotten, stinking business.
The Clintons stink because they hire people like you to kill stories for them, or are they smart?
It's absolutely necessary, unfortunately.
For them?
For everyone. I mean, if you've seen Wiener, you know what I'm talking about.
Right.
It's the main appeal of this to me and the risks that I am taking professionally to do this. I don't know what's going to happen to the TV series based on my novels. They could die tomorrow.
Right.
The important message to get out, and you've said it yourself, is the election is too important to focus on this salacious
That raises
material.
my last question. Who are you voting for? Because obviously people are going to wonder, are you doing this because you like Donald Trump?
I am not doing this for or against any candidate. I am doing this hopefully to
level the playing field.
Level it, and I hope that this stuff is so unpalatable that we just stop. I mean, I know that's an absurd dream.
It sounds like you like Trump, though.
I like Trump, sure.
Who are you voting for?
One of those two.
All right. Thank you for being with us.
Thank
Appreciate
you,
it. Coming up next, Project Veritas out with a brand new undercover video that appears to show Hillary Clinton, in fact, is at the center of this sinister plot to try and damage Donald Trump. Trump's campaign manager, Kellyanne Conway, is here with reaction, and also later tonight.
We're going to suspend immigration from terror-prone regions where vetting cannot safely occur.
Donald Trump this weekend unveils his contract with you, the American voter, during a major speech over the weekend in Gettysburg. Trump's running mate, Indiana Governor. And welcome back to Hannity. So Project Veritas is out with a brand new undercover video tonight that appears to show Democratic operatives admitting that Hillary Clinton herself is responsible for a dirty politics plan to try and attack Donald Trump over his tax returns. Now, Fox News, as we've been telling you, we have not independently verified what's seen in the video, but it is beyond shocking. Take a look.
Originally, we were going to do a project. We were going to do Uncle Sam, I want you. Here's your tax returns. I agree it's not as good.
Been done, yeah.
I agree it's not as good. It's much easier to execute. The guy who had done this other Chicken George thing had this other idea. And in the end, it was the candidate, Hillary Clinton, the future president of the United States, who wanted ducks on the ground. But by God, we will give ducks on the ground.
So it's, wow.
Don't read that thing.
We reached out to all the people and groups that were referenced in the video. We didn't hear back. Now, also tonight, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that a super PAC for major Clinton ally, Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe, donated, get this, almost $500,000 to the state Senate campaign of the wife of Andrew McCabe, Now, he's the FBI's deputy director. He's the guy that oversaw the investigation into Hillary Clinton's email server. You can't make this up. Here with reaction is Donald Trump's campaign manager, Kellyanne Conway. All right. We established in the earlier Project Veritas videos that the money goes from the campaign to the DNC, to this Democratic group, to those people fomenting violence and planning widespread, plotting, planning, and scheming widespread voter fraud in this election cycle. Now, in this third tape, it goes directly to Hillary herself making the decision about how this outside group, these agitators, exactly what they're to do. Now, I'd like to know, what did she know? When did she know it? Did she know about the fomenting of violence? Did she know about the scheme for major voter fraud? Are these fair questions?
They're very fair questions, Sean, and there's a pattern of conduct here that is destroy your opponent. I heard nothing in these tapes at all about how Hillary Clinton is going to explain Obamacare 3.0 in all of its merits, how she'll defeat terrorism, how she'll get the 94 million people out of the workforce into the workforce, help these millions of men and women and children who are in poverty or not insured. It's never that way. It's always the cesspool of the politics of personal destruction. And if you don't hear it in the Project Veritas and see it in the Project Veritas videotapes, then just go to a swing state with me sometime, friend, and go turn on a TV, because it's all over America. Attack, attack, attack. You know, we're old enough to remember last month Hillary Clinton saying, when they go low, we'll go high. That lasted a hot minute. I mean, they've been going low ever since, and these tapes just prove it.
What do you
make? The other thing I just want to mention is, I just want to mention very quickly that Donald Trump is out there talking about the rigged, corrupt system. And when he talks about the rigged, corrupt system, he's really talking about the forgotten man and forgotten woman. And these tapes, these revelations, show exactly what he means, Sean. That the rigged, corrupt system means that the little guy gets left behind, that somebody like Donald Trump, who the mainstream media and the moneyed folks and the entire political left don't want to be a legitimate candidate, don't want to win. They will stop at nothing to try to destroy him. They don't want to debate on the issues. They just want to destroy him. And when he talks about the rigged, corrupt system, people see, I think it's a very resonant message, because people see right in front of them that everything's unfair.
For Donald Trump to win, he must win Florida. He must win North Carolina. He must win Ohio. And that's assuming that Utah, Texas, and Georgia is not in play, as some are suggesting, which I don't believe they are. Then he's got to win New Hampshire. He's got to win Iowa or New Mexico instead of New Hampshire. And then he's got to take Nevada. He's got to take Arizona. For him, it's got to be, he's got to run the table.
You're
and then
one short.
Which one? Well,
then you need Maine, too.
Maine congressional too. I can't forget that. You're right. That one.
That's right.
That's key to 270. Because you're right. What I mentioned is 269.
It's 269.
Right. I know.
And then it's Speaker Paul Ryan. Speaker Paul Ryan decides, I think, who the president will be.
He'd probably pick Hillary.
No, he would not. He would pick
really?
Mr. Trump and Governor Pence. Yes, Sean.
I'll believe it when I see it.
But here's the thing. We're not taking our chances. So you've laid out the map, and then we've got a couple of other states who are being very competitive in there. Watch where we deploy our assets, Mr. Trump and Governor Pence, where we're up in paid advertising and where we're also trying to leverage some other opportunities. Right. But look, every time somebody tries to apply conventional principles to Donald Trump, they're wrong. Because this is a guy who's defied convention from day one, and I believe the people are making up their own minds. They won't be told, just as in the primaries, they won't be told who can win, how to think, who to vote for, what to believe. The race is over. The race is not over. Give people their voice and their vote. It is not up to you or me or anybody in Clinton world, and certainly not in the mainstream media. The responsibility is to cover the election, not tilt it. It's up to the voters. They deserve to stand in line and express their vote. And I'm telling you, the people who stand in line for a Trump rally, 10, 15,000 strong, they're coming out to vote.
Yeah, by the 400 that show up at Hillary's rally, I assume they'll vote too. All right, Kellyanne, good to see you.
It's like a professor's lecture. It's not a rally.
Yeah, I know. All right, and coming up next tonight, right here on Hannity, Indiana Governor Mike Pence joins us, and also later tonight.
Without the media, Hillary Clinton would be nothing. They're disgraceful.
Donald Trump, he takes on the liberal press after evidence of collusion between the media and the Clinton campaign appears. We're going to show you the latest example from WikiLeaks, that and more, tonight on this busy news night right here on Hannity. Election day in this past Saturday in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, Donald Trump laid out what he will do in his first 100 days in office and his contract with you, the American voter. Here are some of the highlights.
What follows is my 100-day action plan to make America great again. A constitutional amendment to impose term limits on all members of Congress. A requirement that for every new federal regulation, 2 existing regulations must be eliminated. We will cancel all federal funding of sanctuary cities. We will begin removing the more than 2 million criminal illegal immigrants from the country. These are our drug dealers, gang heads, gang members, killers. We're going to suspend immigration from terror-prone regions where vetting cannot safely occur. Fully repeal Obamacare and replace it with health savings accounts.
All right, joining us now, Donald Trump's running mate, Indiana Governor Mike Pence is with us. Governor, good to see you. But this actually goes deeper than just 10 things. This is really about 28 specific promises. I wanted to give you an opportunity to outline it for people because, you know what, we do talk a lot about non-substantive issues, and I figured this is a good opportunity to talk about what, you know, how are we going to get this country moving again? Economically, foreign policy, protect the homeland.
Well, Sean, and I appreciate the opportunity. I think what Donald Trump laid out in Gettysburg is really what this election's all about. It's a choice between 2 futures. Never in my lifetime have I seen a more dramatic choice between the policies of Hillary Clinton, who wants to raise taxes, have open borders, continue the kind of trade deals that are costing jobs, hollow out our military, walk away from the high ideals of the American people enshrined in the Constitution, and Donald Trump, who you heard lay out that plan in the way that he's been laying out now for months, a plan to really make America great again by rebuilding our military, ending illegal immigration, cutting taxes, repealing Obamacare, having the kind of trade deals that support jobs, and having appointments to the Supreme Court of the United States that will uphold those constitutional ideals. Those are the big issues. That's the big choice. But I have to tell you, at rallies here in North Carolina today, that it's the enthusiasm for that agenda, the enthusiasm for Donald Trump's vision to make America great again, I think is driving us toward a great day on November the 8th.
You know, for a Republican to win, if we look at historically, you have to thread the needle. You've got to win North Carolina, must win. You've got to win Florida. You've got to win Ohio. You've got to win Iowa, hopefully New Hampshire and New Mexico, and hopefully then put other states in play. As you look at the electoral map and you look at the poll numbers, it has you close in a lot of these swing states, but down in some of them. How do you interpret that? Do you think there's a Brexit effect? Do you think there are people that won't admit they're voting for Donald Trump, or do you believe the polls?
Well, you know, the only poll that matters is going to be finished on November the 8th. That's first. But, you know, there's a couple national polls, Rasmussen and Investors Business Daily, that actually have us leading. In North Carolina, just today, Fox reported that we're only down 1 here in North Carolina. But I got to tell you, you know, Abraham Lincoln said memorably, believe nothing of what you hear and only half of what you see. What I'm seeing on the ground here in North Carolina, what Donald Trump and I saw in Cleveland on Saturday night, him in Naples today, in Florida today, there's an enthusiasm on the ground like I've never seen in my lifetime. I mean, people are coming out, some of whom have been,
how do you feel about the early vote
really
numbers?
disappointed in politics for years.
I got a chance to see early numbers in Iowa, in Ohio, in Florida. Dems are down almost about half of where they were at this point in the campaign, early voting in 2012. How do you interpret that? Do you think that's a sign? Do you think the crowds are a sign? Do you think that that translates into an enthusiasm your campaign has? Hillary's small crowd shows a lack of enthusiasm?
Well, we're watching that, and you know that you're seeing some evidence even in the state of Ohio that counties that Barack Obama won are significantly down. Counties that Mitt Romney won, you know, are about where they were 4 years ago. I have to tell you, the biggest evidence to me, I was in Circleville, Ohio, on Saturday. My family and I were campaigning at the Pumpkin Show. You would have loved it. There were probably 20,000 people in the streets of Circleville. We had to get out of the vehicles because so many people were cheering us on. They handed me a microphone. I said I was going to see the next president of the United States in Cleveland that night. And literally 20,000 people cheered. And this was just a wide-open public festival. I mean, there is an enthusiasm among everyday Americans from people from every walk of life who just know we can be stronger again, who know we can be more prosperous again. And that 100-day agenda that you started out our conversation with, I think gives people a place to go. And hopefully it also gives some Republicans a place to go who aren't quite there with us yet. I mean, I said today in North Carolina several times that it's time for Republicans to come home. We've got support from independents. We've got support from many Democrats. But as you've said many times, Sean, it's time for Republicans to come home and come together, elect Donald Trump, re-elect Republican majorities in the House and Senate, and turn this country around.
There's no excuse. They'll get the Hillary Clinton they deserve if they don't see just on that one issue, or vetting refugees, or cutting taxes and lowering the corporate tax rate, and energy independence, and eliminating Obamacare. If they can't see the differences, at this point they're a lost cause. Let me ask you, Donald Trump has taken a lot of heat over talking about a rigged election. I would argue the Republican establishment, even friends of yours like Paul Ryan, have been against him. I would argue that the Democratic establishment is against him. We now know through WikiLeaks the media has been colluding with Hillary. But they're acting as though this is the first time it's ever been said. Let me play Barack Obama in 2008. Listen to this.
Right.
I would just like to know what you can say to reassure us that this election will not be rigged or stolen.
Well, I tell you what, it helps in Ohio that we got Democrats in charge of the machines. I come from Chicago, so I want to be honest. It's not as if it's just Republicans who have monkeyed around with elections in the past. Sometimes Democrats have too. You know, whenever people are in power, they have this tendency to try to, tilt things in their direction.
Oh, so Democrats have talked about rigged elections too, and he's basically admitting to it.
Well, I got to tell you, I saw on Twitter the other day a montage of sound bites of Obama and Clinton and all of them using the term rigged. Look,
by the way, that was probably my show. Yeah, but go ahead. Yeah,
probably was. But what Donald Trump is saying is certainly voter fraud is real in polling places and pockets around the country. And in the next 15 days, people ought to be willing to respectfully participate in the process to ensure the integrity of the vote. But when Donald Trump says rigged system, it's just as much being rigged by a media that's trying to write stories in the last 48 hours to suggest this election is over. I mean, the collusion that now we see in these emails where you had reporters checking with Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman whether or not the article they wrote was good or how. I mean, this is the kind of rigged system that's been benefiting the favored few, a liberal political class in Washington, D.C. The American people are onto, and I think it's the center of Donald Trump's appeal. They know that when he becomes president of the United States, he's going to get up every day and fight for the American people. His only special interest will be them. And I have to tell you that I think that's the reason why you're seeing Republicans, Democrats, and independents rallying around the cause here in North Carolina. And I see that momentum every day.
All right, Governor, we have 15 days to go, pretty soon 14, in less than 2 hours. Good to see you, and we'll talk soon. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And coming up next tonight, right here on Hannity.
Without the media, Hillary Clinton would be nothing. They're disgraceful.
Donald Trump taking aim at the liberal mainstream media as new WikiLeaks revelations show even more collusion between the press and the Clinton campaign. That and more straight ahead.
These thieves and crooks, the media, not all of it, but much of it. They're the most crooked. They're almost as crooked as Hillary. They may even be more crooked than Hillary, because without the media, she would be nothing. Without the media, Hillary Clinton would be nothing. They're disgraceful.
And they are disgraceful. Donald Trump earlier today attacking the mainstream media for their blatant collusion with the Clinton campaign. Now, a lot of this has been uncovered by the WikiLeaks email dump. Now, some examples of this collusion include Reuters offering to share House Benghazi committee intel with the campaign. CNBC's John Harwood, well, not only did he try and have lunch with Podesta, he advised the Clinton campaign and bragged how he got Donald Trump mad at the one debate that he moderated. Now, we also, of course, we have Katie Couric offering to, quote, showcase Clinton's personality in a potential interview with the Clintons. A political reporter offering the campaign the chance to edit a story. The New York Times allowing, quote, edits. The Boston Globe pumping up the campaign. Univision pressuring the campaign to attack Trump. MSNBC producer praising the Clinton campaign, bragging about their media support. We know about Donna Brazil leaking a town hall question to the campaign. Here with reaction, our Trump campaign national finance member, author of this brand new book, by the way. It's right there, as you can see. Our good friend Anthony Scaramucci is with us, hopping over the rabbit hole. Which one's the rabbit? Which one's?
I think Bo's the rabbit. I happen to be the hole, Sean. He's been hopping over me the rest of the time.
Democratic mayoral candidate Bo Dietl and nationally syndicated radio talk show host Larry Elder. You really running for mayor?
Well, let me tell you something. Yes, I am a filed candidate for mayor of New York City against Big Bird de Blasio. I am
Comrade Bill de Blasio.
I am outraged about what the New York Times did. And just the New York Times is supposed to be the paper of record, but I respect. Every time I send them a communication, I don't hear nothing back. I wonder why. Now, all of a sudden, I was looking at these WikiLeaks here, and the communication director, Jennifer Palmieri, for Hillary Clinton, all of a sudden, she gets a call to Mark Lubavitch, whatever his name is. All of a sudden, she tells him...
Lubavitch?
Yeah, whatever his name is. Now, all of a sudden, they communicate with each other.
No, you're right. It's collusion.
You can veto anything out of the story you want. I thought the New York Times is the paper of record. When I read it, a paper is supposed to be nonpartisan. Now, all of a sudden, they got this Politico. This is wrong.
It is wrong.
Let me tell you something.
It's collusion.
I gave money to Donald Trump. I support Donald Trump as president. But whoever
Even
wins,
as a Democrat.
As a Democrat. But whoever wins, I'm going to support the President of the United States. But this, to me, is an outrage that these papers, these nonpartisan papers, are letting him look at the story before it's released and edit the story.
They've interviewed me 3 times in the last month. I've got no edit capabilities.
And they rake me over the coals. He could be the only Democrat that I raise money for, though, Sean. Okay,
wow.
This is our guy right now.
Democrats,
by the way, congrats on the book, How Entrepreneurs Turn Failure into Success. You know, I learned a lot. We've been friends for a long time, but I learned a lot about you. You struggled. You had your problems in life.
I try to tell a real story in there. You know, I've been fired. I failed the bar exam. I had ups and downs the early part of my career. 2008 was a brutal year for us. Bo was there. Bo helped me get the SALT conference started, Sean. He was one of the first keynote speakers.
He's one of the most resilient guys I've ever met.
I wanted to write a story that people could relate to growing up the way you and I did. Right. You know, coming from families like ours.
I'm really glad, aren't you? Because I'm glad I washed dishes and cooked and did construction.
I worked in the key food. You know, I worked for my uncle's motorcycle shop. My dad had me on the stone dock as a kid. You know, I was at Harvard Law School, but shoveling sand on the on these big barges out on Manhasset Bay, Long Island Sound.
Well, you know, it's
hang on a second. Let me bring Larry in. Larry, let's talk about this media. It's like an in-kind campaign contribution. You know, we get criticized, Larry, because we're open and honest. We tell people we have a point of view. This is an editorial. There's no pretense. But these guys act like they're fair and balanced. Here's my main question. How come the Politico, how come the New York Times people, how come all these outlets, there's no price to pay for the collusion that's been exposed here? Why?
Nobody gets fired. Nobody gets reprimanded. It's business as usual. And Sean, it's one thing to complain about media bias, as we often do. It's another thing to try and determine exactly the effect media bias has on how people vote. And a friend of mine named Tim Grosclose, who wrote a book called Left Turn, has tried to do just that. He teaches at George Mason University. And he found out of the top 20 sources of news, 18 of them are left-wing. Only 2 are not. And that's the Nightly News with Bret Baier and the Washington Times. And his analysis is that if the media were truly fair fair and balanced, if they really gave another point of view about fill in the blank, climate change, minimum wage, taxes, Obamacare, illegal immigration, if they really gave people the other point of view, the average state would vote the way Texas does, which is about 8 to 10 points in favor of the Republican.
And coming up, we need your help. A very important question of the day. That's straight ahead. All right, time for our question of the day. So what do you think of Donald Trump's contract with you, the American voter? Just go to Facebook.com/Sean Hannity, at Sean Hannity on Twitter to let us know what you think. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have left this evening. Thanks for being with us. We will see you back here tomorrow night.